to a live edition of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, Identity and Influence. My name is Mo, and I'm here, as always, with Dr. Lemmy. What's up, dude?
Yes, sir. So good to be with you, man. Excited about this conversation. Can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, so you sent me a graphic, gosh, 2, 3 months ago, and
Yeah.
you didn't give any context or anything. You just sent the graphic and said, check this out. And it had to do with the state of the church and leadership, and
Yeah, yeah,
man, it
yeah.
was kind of crazy. So why don't you take us through some of that?
So a couple of months ago, I went to this seminar that Biola and Glue and Barna put out. So it's the latest Barna research on they called it the state of the church. This is what's happening in church, and there are a lot of things happening with Gen Z and who's coming to church and that kind of thing. But the graphic that I sent you was from the presentation, and the graphic just says this: there's three circles, and the first circle says that among pastors, 92% of pastors would say that they prefer lay-driven initiatives to new church programs, which, that's 92%. So most pastors would say, yeah, we want our volunteers and we want our people to, set up these programs and get these church programs going. We want them to be doing this stuff. 96% of pastors would say, for my church to be healthy, we need lay people to take more responsibility. But only 9% of pastors say that the church is very good at developing leaders. So 90 plus percent of pastors would love to have more lay leadership in their church, but only 9% of pastors would say that they are any good or they even have any kind of leadership development program for their lay leaders. And so there's a huge disconnect. And I think that's why they put up the graphic, because they're wanting to tell pastors, you want these people to lead in your congregations, but you're not developing them as leaders. And so I sent it to you, since we talk about leadership and we care a lot about the church. Like, why do you think there's that disconnect between pastors thinking, oh yeah, it would be better and my church would be healthier if lay leaders would just step up, but there's no leadership development? Like, has that been your experience in churches? And then what's missing?
Yeah, I think that pastors get it wrong all the time. What, what I thought was funny with that graphic is what they really need to ask people is whose fault is it? And it's funny that nine percent of 9% of pastors say that, but really the question is like, well, why aren't you people doing what they're supposed to be doing? That's really my question for people.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that we're equipping people. Again, I always had good leadership, good mentorship, and so that stuff really was part of the program. But then I talked to a bunch of people. I mean, you and I used to have this conversation 30 years ago, and we both had really good bosses.
Yeah.
And we would go to camp in the summers, and we would chat, and we'd be like, "What's wrong?" And I mean, our churches weren't perfect, obviously,
Yeah.
but I think that the programmatically, I think both were pretty solid.
Yeah. I think the situation is such that, like, there are these pastors that are in leadership positions, so they have the positional title of you're the lead pastor or you're the leader for this ministry. But to be able to lead beyond the title, I think is what this graphic is saying. Like, there's a lot of pastors that would call themselves leaders because they have the title and they lead their ministries, but they're not necessarily all, like, just because you're a leader doesn't necessarily mean that you're pretty good at leadership development. Now, this is what the research is saying. This is they've checked out thousands of churches and people, and, like, this is as they were sharing this research, um just because you're a leader positionally, that doesn't necessarily translate into you being able to develop leaders. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, again, I think that well, I think leadership is few and far between in terms of good leadership. And I mean, if we're again using these stats, right?
Yeah.
92% prefer that the people in their church are the ones that should drive the new initiatives.
Yeah.
92 out of 100 pastors say the people that come to my church need to be at the forefront of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Then 96 out of 100 pastors
Would
say
say
that if my church is going to be healthier,
you
my
need.
parishioners, my congregation, they need to take more responsibility.
Yeah.
But then only 9 out of 100 pastors say, "Yeah, we're doing that. We're
Yeah.
equipping our people."
Yeah.
So that's the disconnect. And so
Yeah.
no, I don't think that people do it right. I don't think that pastors are doing what they need to do, because again, the joke always, and I've pastored at a ton of different pastors at all levels, as you have. I've been a youth pastor, an executive pastor, a groups pastor, a
Yeah.
senior pastor.
Yeah.
And whenever somebody would come to me and say, "Dude, Mo, pastor, we need to do this new program. I got this great program where we want to do an oil change ministry for single moms," I'd say, "Great. Do you want to start it?"
Mhm.
And they would look at
They
me
say
like,
no.
"What?" Well,
Yeah.
I can't do that. And it's not necessarily that they didn't want to do it, because they wanted to be a part of it. But then I say, "Do you want to do it?" And then they're thinking like, "Well, I can't do that, Mo." Now, at that point, if I want to be in that 9% of pastors that do the right thing, what I would say
Yeah.
is, "Okay, I'm going to have you be in charge of the ministry, but I'm going to make sure you're equipped to do everything that you need to do."
Mhm. Mhm.
Because they don't know the state of the church. They don't know where to do it, how to do it, how to get volunteers. It's usually take the oil change ministry for instance. Usually some guy who's good at working on cars,
Yeah.
who's helped a couple of single moms before, and thinks,
Yeah.
"Man, these ladies, I should do this. This is easy for me. I know how
Yeah.
to change a tire. I know
Yeah.
how to change oil. I'm going to do it." But that's their expertise. My job as a pastor, as a leader, is to say, "Okay, I want to help you do that. Let's put you in a position to be a leader and to lead that ministry."
Right.
If you give people what they need to lead those ministries,
Yeah.
then they'll blow up and they'll get good at that other stuff. Then they'll be able to recruit other people to be a part of to be a part of their team. And then all of a sudden they're not doing the oil changes because they don't have time.
Yeah.
They've got 4 or
Yeah.
5 other guys doing it. Same thing with like parking lot ministry. For anybody who's out there whose church has gotten to a point, and you were part of a big church. You've been a
Mhm.
part of a couple big churches, so have I.
Mhm.
And I remember the first time we had to add a parking lot ministry, it was like, what do we do? I don't know. Let's get a bunch of orange vests and cones,
Yeah.
and then a couple of we put it out on the big screen, and a couple of dads usually came up and said, "Hey, I know how to do that stuff. I know I feel good at this stuff. I can direct traffic. I'm good at." And so we'd say, "Okay, well, great, do it. Tell me what you need." And of course, the first 1 week, 2 months, whatever, was messed up, and cars were all jammed up and whatever. But then they'd say, "Hey, pastor, this is going all wrong." But
Mhm.
so they would see the problems, but they really wouldn't see how to fix it. And my job as a leader would say, "Okay,
Yeah.
well, what are the options? What I
Yeah.
see here, Mr. Parking Lot Ministry Man,
Yeah.
is we've only got one interest on the bottom, we got two interests in the top. How do we use that? Well, if we
Yeah.
funnel it in, and we've got to people aren't people aren't leaving after first service, and the second service people are getting there, and now we don't have enough spots or whatever." And then I had to figure that out,
Yeah.
which means it was usually my fault as the pastor for going too long. Because if I in that instance, if I were to like get the timeline right, okay, now I'm doing it. But my point is this: people have these great ideas. They're ready to serve. They want to serve,
Yeah.
right? These lay people, I prefer lay driven initiatives
Yeah.
to start new programs. There there's no shortage of people in your church that want to do stuff. That's why they go to church,
Right.
because they want to be a part of the community.
Yeah.
They're bringing their kids there. They're bringing their wife there, their husband there, whatever. They're saying, "I want to be a part of this."
Yeah.
If somebody's not doing something in my church, Doc, it's my fault. If somebody is
Yeah.
not giving their time, it's my fault.
Yeah. Yeah. And you highlight something interesting, like with the guy that wants to change oil and stuff. He's good at this thing, right? The changing oil. He's good at that. But in order to lead a ministry, you're asking him to do all of these things that he's not good at. Marketing, working with the systems that are in the church. Are there even systems in the church of accountability, of finances, of whatever, to run this ministry? Like, are those systems in place? Is there a leadership culture that your church has developed in order to help this person that's good at this thing develop this whole program. And I think that's what's missing. You know what I mean? Like they might be, and that's the thing that you're highlighting. They might be good at running this thing, but the reason why they can't run that ministry is because there's all these other pieces that are missing that they're not good at. And I think that's the leader's responsibility. I think that's the church's responsibility to have those systems in place, to have those mechanisms in place so that like when somebody wants to start a ministry, here's they can point to, okay, this person's going to help you to do that. This is this will fall under this. These are all the guidelines. All of that is set. I mean, if you don't have that in place, of course only 9% of people are going to say, yeah, we have good leadership development um in place, you know, and only nine out of 100 pastors can say that they have that in place. Most people don't have those systems or their mechanisms in place in order to let ministries run.
Yeah, and those 9 pastors are the only ones that are doing it right.
Right.
Because
Right.
if they're saying, yeah, I feel good, we're taking care of our people, and we're making sure that we create leaders.
Yeah.
Pastors, that's your job, is to create leaders.
Yeah.
Like you are a leader who develops leaders. If you haven't read John Maxwell's 5 Levels of Leadership, you need to read that. And most people think they're a level 5 leader, and they'll say they'll be all humble and be like, well, I'm not a level 5 leader, I'm a level 4 leader. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're maybe a level 2 leader.
Yeah.
If you could be a level 3 leader,
Yeah.
where you start to develop leaders who can do stuff, and you're starting to train those leaders, that then you're in the very minority. And those
Yeah.
9 pastors are probably the ones that are doing that, and they wouldn't be bragging. They'd just be saying, I've got great people. And
Yeah.
of course they've got great people. Every church has great people. It's the pastors that aren't great. And that's why we need to get rid of bad leadership. Right? The first thing you do, Maxwell said, the first thing he does if he comes into a company and it's not successful, what does he do? He fires the leader. He says, you got to fire the leader. Because if we weren't having these problems, I wouldn't have to be here in the first place.
Right. Right.
And so what I would say to those other 92 out of 100 leaders, right? My church leadership is very good at developing new leaders.
Yeah.
Only 9% are saying yes. And those other 91 out of 100 pastors, what are you doing? Like, or actually, what are you not doing? And so I would be interested in why the first two circles, right? 92% say that my church needs to get more involved. 96% say they need to take ownership. And then they ask those same pastors, and they're like, yeah, they're just not being taught to be leaders. Well, whose fault is that? It's your fault.
Right.
So be a better leader.
Yeah.
Train your people to be better.
You also highlight that, there isn't that leadership culture in order to develop that, right? I mean, just giving somebody a leadership position doesn't make that a leadership culture. It doesn't really even make them a leader because all of these things are missing. How would you help a pastor work through that in their organization? Like, what would you do to build that leadership culture or help a pastor develop leaders? Because I know lots of pastors that call themselves leaders that don't necessarily develop leaders. Like, how would you do it?
Yeah, I'd probably fire them first and say, you shouldn't be running an organization if you don't know how to build leaders. But if somebody brought me in, and honestly, like people do, right? And people bring in rising tide, and we've gone in, and we do go into a lot of nonprofits. We go into for-profits, and people will ask and say, I'm doing my best, Mo. What do I do? And it's always a culture question.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would give them right away, as I would call free chicken, like, hey, whether you hire us or not, this is what I see. You've taken the assessment that we do, the DISC assessment. I've talked to some of your people, and this is some of the stuff that they say. Here's what you have to do, Pastor. And whatever the needs are, I can tell you culturally, here's a couple things. One, you have to take responsibility and start asking people what you're doing wrong. And that's tough. Because if people already don't trust you, they're not going to tell you.
Right. And if you have And if you have thin skin, you won't be able to hear that kind of feedback.
Absolutely. You're just going to get defensive and you're gonna be like, well, and you start making
Yeah.
excuses. You just need to,
Yeah.
you need to ask some people, you need to ask 2 or 3 people, bring them in the room and say, give me the down and dirty. Just
Yeah.
tell them, what are we doing wrong here? And every time they do that, you need to take responsibility and ownership and know, okay, I'm the one that's doing that wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
the second thing I would do is this. I would start to get to know my people on a regular basis.
Mhm.
Okay. When you and I first got to know each other, Lem, right? We were both on staffs of churches, and what do? We just hung out, and it was before cell phones. It was before, I think it was the pagers were around,
Yeah.
but we didn't see each other every day. We
Yeah.
saw each other for a full week at camp, and then
Yeah.
sometimes I would run a camp, and you would be doing music at a camp, and
Yeah.
we would do a couple camps. So we'd see each other maybe 2 weeks out of the
Yeah.
out of the summer, right? But then we would keep in contact, and you and I
Yeah.
got to know each other.
Yeah.
Well, people ask me all the time, Mo, I'm frustrated because I don't have people in my life that can give it to me straight. Well, that's because you have to start these relationships 30 years ago.
Yeah. Right.
But here's the good thing. When is the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago, 30
Yeah.
years
I
ago.
was gonna say yesterday.
When's yesterday? When's the next best time to plant a tree? Today.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I'll leave our listeners with this, and I'd love to hear your final thoughts. I think people need to find an inner circle in their church, pastor,
Mhm.
leader, whether if you're part of a secular organization, I don't care. You need to find people that are going to give it to you the way that you need to hear it. The reason that I have Lim in my life, if I could be a little bit vulnerable here, is because Lim has always told me what he thinks. Now, he he gives it to me a little bit different than the other men in my life who speak in my life, the other men and women in my life. But for Lim specifically, he'll say, "Hey Mo, here's what I observed," and and he always says it. He always says, "I'm not judging. I'm just telling you," and I believe him. And once he says it, he he never says it again unless
Yeah.
I bring it up. But
Yeah.
I always bring it back up
Yeah.
because I've invited Lim into my life. And so my
Yeah.
question is, who are the men and women that you are inviting into your life to tell you what you need to hear? Then and only then can you start to create good culture. Culture is already being
Yeah.
made in your organization.
Yeah.
So if you're listening out there on Facebook, YouTube, wherever,
Yeah.
you need to know that there's already a culture that your people have. If it's a bad
Yeah.
culture, it's your fault. If it's a good culture, it's your win. So
Yeah.
I would rather see, just like our clients, I'd see more. I want to see more people win. So
Yeah. No, I'd love to hear from those that are watching. Please leave in the comments. Does this resonate with you? Is this what's happening in your church? You know, would your pastors say that we need more lay leadership, and would your pastors also say that we have good leadership development? I mean, it all rises and falls on leadership, and whatever the leader does, the whole organization will do. And so, yeah, we want to hear from you. We'd love your feedback. Thanks for checking this out. Thanks, Mo, for having this conversation. Always a great time, man. Breaking stuff down and talking about leadership, and just, it's always encouraging to me.
yeah, I appreciate it. And for our audience out there, don't forget to like and subscribe, share, sign up for our newsletter, and we're going to be doing more of these lives. We've had a lot of people that just said, "Hey, here's some of the topics that we think are important." And so we'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot, Len.
Thank you.